Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 6 of Heaven Official's Blessing. I'm pretty excited. So the last episode I talked for a long time about, but there was a lot of ground to cover. It was an exposition dump, but here's the thing. They explained things about the plot, but you were left with more questions than answers. And to be honest, that is my kind of story. I love a story that gives you so many questions. It builds on those questions. It gives you more questions. And then it takes its sweet time, slowly unraveling and rethreading the story to where you finally make it all fall into place. So I'm pretty excited. I'm recording this a little bit early. Episode 5's come out on Patreon, and episode 4 has come out on YouTube. And so I do want to go ahead and say real quick, please no spoilers. Please don't reconfirm or don't affirm or deconfirm my theories. There have been a couple comments that have been like, hey, just so you know, and I'm like, or there have been a couple comments that have been like, actually in the novel, and I've been like, and then there's been a couple comments that have said, well, you're partially right, and I'm like, I just stopped reading because I'm so... The thing that kills my excitement about a show, especially a mystery, is when people start explaining the mystery. And I'm like, no, I want to find out. I'm probably going to be wrong. 90% of the things I say for most of this series are probably going to be wrong theories. But I want to find out through reading the novel eventually and the manhwa. And from watching this series, I want to figure things out. And it's so fun when you do get things wrong and then you're like, oh, I didn't see this coming, and it's something brand new. So please, if 95% of y'all are doing amazing, and I'm so sorry you have to hold back because the Discord right now is just black box. Like, that's just the Discord. And occasionally somebody will be like, I wonder what Romania thinks popping in here. And I'm like, it's fine. Eventually, just like with Modao Zushi, eventually we'll be able to talk about these things in the Discord and in the comments and be able to go into full discussions with them. Eventually, everything will come to light. But y'all are not hurting my feelings by not spoiling me. That's all I'll say. But I do have some notes before we start episode 6. But episode 5, I feel like when it comes on YouTube, everybody's going to be like, so, and I'm going to be like, I know I'll figure stuff out, but I just don't want to be spoiled. So I do have a couple comments from about half a dozen of you because you had some really cool things to say. These are from both Patreon and YouTube. Harpreet Singh, I hope I said that right, talked about there was a correction with episode 4, and that is that Pei Jr., he ascended 200 years ago. It did not take him 200 years to ascend. I was like, okay, cool. So mortals live pretty standard lifetimes, and then once you ascend, though, it's kind of a different deal. So, okay, good to know. So yeah, it took, the ascension of Pei Jr. was 200 years ago, not that it took 200 years. Thank you for that correction. Anastasia talked about how Xie Lian likes to keep to himself with his thoughts. I thought this was really cool because it does make him different than Wuxian as a protagonist, and I really like that because Wuxian just says whatever he wants. He was just like said whatever was on his mind and didn't hold back. But Xie Lian seems to hold back a lot, and it's going to be fun going to the novel being from his perspective and seeing what his internal monologue that the Donghua is not giving us versus what we actually hear in the novel. So I'm really excited for that because it makes it seem like the novel will be a different experience than the Donghua, and I'm all about that, so I can't wait to read the novel and see how he's different there. But I did notice that. That's really cool, Anastasia, that you pointed that out. Also, Smirk Jr. seems to have some sort of grudge against the gods. Yeah, he doesn't seem to see, he doesn't view them in a favorable light, especially the water one. Doesn't seem to think so. And then this point was brought up, the idea that the gods, they do depend a lot on mortals because they basically get their power from the worshiping of the people that are seemingly below them, right? So that's very interesting, the power that faith can have in this world. And if you have it versus having none. And that's very fascinating. I feel like that's going to be something that this series is going to touch on a lot. And so that's going to be really cool to kind of pin back right now and just say, okay, here's a theme that we're going to have to pin back here, and it'll probably come up throughout this series. But that was really cool on how it can have a profound impact on the deeds that are benefiting or becoming a detriment to these gods. So that's really cool. Yellow Soy noted that Xianxia deals with banishment as punishment a lot of the times. Banishment or imprisonment or complete soul destruction, as they said. So if you're banished, Yellow Soy described banishment as just being like kicked out of something and forbidden to come there. So I'm saying like probably Xie Lian's fate after they were demoted. They were banished to the mortal realm and had to keep repeating certain lifetimes until they ascended again. So we think. But then also that total soul destruction is kind of like the death row in Chinese mythology, where it's just completely erasing you from existence. That makes sense. And then if something's too strong to be completely erased, then they're imprisoned. And I'm like, okay. So I'm imagining that a lot of these calamities, unless they've actually been destroyed and gone through the soul destruction, that maybe they've been imprisoned or just taken somewhere off the map so that they're out of sight, out of mind. That's curious. And I think going forward, that's going to be interesting. So I'm like, does Mr. Smirk, Hua Chong, fit into that he was too powerful maybe to destroy, so they just imprisoned him somewhere? But then he could turn into butterflies and go anywhere. So how does that work? So lots of questions that I'm sure this series is going to give me answers to, but it's just, I've got a lot. This last episode, like, my mind was racing with all of these things to think about, like, what could this mean? What could that mean? Has me really excited. And then Qian Fong said that Ying refers to fireflies. I'm like, oh, because she doesn't live very long. I'm like, it's like a short-lived, a burst of beautiful light and then ceasing to exist. I was like, that is tragic. And if I had been someone that knew what Ying meant, I'd been like, oh, you red flag, but I did not. So Anime Annie and as well as Sarah Linda and a couple others pointed out that Hua Chong not only winning against the martial gods was a battle, but winning against the civil gods was a debate. So not only is Mr. Smirk has a really cool name, a badass look, and is possibly a king of ghosts, not only that, but he also is both strong and smart. Checking off all the boxes. I'm really excited. I can see why Xie Lian instantly fell for him. It was like swoon. Can instantly see how that might have been the case, right? And so also Anime Annie as well as Foreign Sunsets was talking about how Lin Wing in the episode where the men are talking about the shrines, I thought they were referring to Lin Wing as a woman, but in the translation, it's actually they were referring to Lin Wing as a nondescript, like a male. They think Lin Wing is a male god when she's not. It's like, damn, if only they knew. If only they knew. So that was good to note. Thank you for that. Four Sunsets noted that the boy with the bandages probably thought that Xie Lian was reacting to how he looked, rather than Xie Lian was actually reacting to the fact that, oh my God, this human face disease that deeply traumatized me hundreds of years ago is still around. That's more what he was reacting to. But it's interesting that Four Sunsets brought up that the boy probably reacted to him thinking he was disgusted with him. And it's like, oh no, there's that miscommunication. So I didn't notice that the first time around, but I went back and rewatched the episode and you definitely get that vibe. And I'm like, so Xie Lian just left a bad impression with him. It's like, well, that sucks. But thank you, Four Sunsets, for bringing that up. And then finally, Goldman noted that Mount Tonghu literally means bronze cauldron. So I was thinking of like the 80s Disney movie, The Black Cauldron, where all the demons and stuff crawl out of the black cauldron and it kind of just filters out. That's the visual that I get. But if they're in this giant bronze cauldron, it's literally like just this melting pot of all these ghosts that are battling endlessly. And supposedly Hua Chong is from that melting pot. So it's like, if you're strong enough to get out of that, what does that say about you? So that's exciting. But yeah. Lots of different things brought up last episode. Lots of characters with seemingly hidden motivations, hidden feelings, like with Yang and I've got to turn to my character chart now. With Mu Qing and Xuan, with Mu Qing and Feng Xin, both of them seem guilty. Can't imagine why. And they both seem like they're hiding certain things from Xie Lian, since he doesn't seem to remember everything. And everybody seems just a little bit sketchy, with the exception of Ling Wen. Ling Wen does not seem sketchy. She seems pretty genuine. But everybody else, all the other gods up there, they seem a little shady. So, except for our cinnamon roll, Xie Lian, he is our perfect little junk scrapping cinnamon bun. Someone also said that apparently in China, they started doing a collaboration to collect junk after Xie Lian. I'm like, that's so cute. He was adorable last episode, but I'm interested about our dashing young rogue who has shown up and looks suspiciously like Hua Chong. We talked about this in the comments in the Discord, but it's very odd because the show seems like it wants me to think that this boy is Hua Chong because he's wearing similar robes. He has that just air about him. But I'm like, but you're not a ghost. And Hua Chong is a ghost. But then somebody was like, well, they can also shapeshift. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that from episode 1, they said that ghosts can shapeshift, but he looks so real. And I'm like, I just don't know. And I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want people to tell me what it is, but it's gonna, just know it's in the back of my mind, constantly brewing, is like, who are you? And maybe we'll get some more answers in this episode. So I've talked for 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and start. But I hope you all enjoy the reaction and discussion. But we're going to start Heaven Official's Blessing, episode 6, technically episode 5, but episode 6 on Netflix here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Okay, so fortunately I didn't get to stop the Netflix video before I tried to go to the next episode, and I was like, no. So man, so I had to bring my board Kun out because y'all are gonna be like, I know you all are biting your tongues. I know you all are sitting on your hands being like, Romania. but please bear with me. I want to express my theories because I think old San Long is Hua Chong. I think he's Hua Chong. Yeah, he's just in disguise. But I wanted to bring Whiteboard Kun out because I feel like we need to break it down, like all the reasons why I think that he's Hua Chong. And it is like scorching hot outside. I'm like sweating, but I'm drinking coffee, which doesn't help. But yeah, I want to go through this episode. Poor Xie Lian. Xie Lian is just smitten like all over. And I'm getting, this episode, up until now, I had been thinking, okay, I do want to read the novel after this season because I've been told, without spoiling anything, I've been told that the novel deals with explaining more of Xie Lian's perspective and getting more inside his headspace and seeing his personality more and getting more information. Obviously, the Donghua kind of simplifies because they only have 11 episodes to work with. And so that had made me excited. But this episode made me really want to read the novel because I'm like, oh, we're already sleeping in the same bed? Okay. Even though Xie Lian was like the most pure cinnamon bun about it, you know that I'm definitely getting, it's the funniest things. It's the funniest thing. I get, like, we were talking at the beginning of this, how Xie Lian kind of has like a Xingxin vibe to him. And then in this episode, I felt like when they're working on the house, it felt like from what I was used to, felt like Yang and Xingxin working on the house together. But I get more like Wanji vibes now from Song Long. I'm getting more like, it's weird. I'm getting like Wanji-esque vibes from him, especially in certain parts where he like seems to be lamenting and seems to be like having this ennui. I'm like, what is happening? And so we need to talk about it. We just need to talk about it. And just, there's things brought up in this episode about ghosts, about things. And so we're going to label this section here of clues that our boy San Long is actually Hua Chong. Yeah, that's what we're gonna look here. All the clues. We're gonna put that on this side, and then over here we're going to have things about Xie Lian that we learned in this episode, because we learned some things about him too. So I want to get those two side by side here and go from there. But yeah, what a romantic stroll through the autumn woods. It seems kind of like when Hua Chong took you through the bloody forest in the weirdest of ways, right? And he's like, so Xie Lian says, you know a lot about gods, what about ghosts? And that's when he asks about the whole thing with Hua Chong. Yeah, so let's cut back to as much as I like the OP. And he's just sitting there, leaning back, casually just being like blowing the leaves off him, trying to be cool, trying to be seductive for his man that he's in love with, I'm sure. And Xie Lian is just an innocent cinnamon bun who is like instantly smitten, but okay. He's like, what do you want to know? Just ask me. And I like that how San Long, as we call him, he's like all stretched out and very like casual and loose, and then meanwhile Xie Lian is like perfectly posed with his feet crossed and everything, you know, very prim and proper. The name Crimson Rain Sought Flower sounds amazing. How did it come about? And here's the thing. Okay, so the way that he casually talks about gods and ghosts, about G&G. Yeah, because like these people that come to the shrine and everything, they're freaking out. They're being like, oh God, God, help us. And they're like all manic. And even to talk about a god or a ghost, they seem freaked out or in extreme reverence of or fear of. But San Long is just like, it's not a big deal. I'll tell you the story about the ghost. Like, he's not even phased, right? So it seems like more than how a normal human would react to it, right? So the casual tone of his voice is like a flag, right? But then we go to, he says, one day after he destroyed the lair of a ghost, a flower drenched and struggling in the bloody rain caught his eye. So he killed a giant ghost, and as its blood poured onto the flowers below, this pristine white flower caught his eye. And it's like, aha. But I'm like, that pristine white flower, does it kind of seem like a representation of Xie Lian? Because Xie Lian is like pristine and pure and a cinnamon roll. So is it kind of like a representation of that, perhaps? But there he is. So he held his umbrella for it. And they, of course, conveniently do not show us his face now because we, the audience, would probably connect it to San Long. But yeah, he has like the jewels and everything and the giant umbrella. But the umbrella seems like it's from the kid in the Opier Edie that was going towards the shrine with the flower. And the flower is the same flower that Xie Lian had in the painting. So I'm like, this is the same guy. The kid with the bandages, the bridegroom, Mr. Smirk, Hua Chong, San Long, they're all the same person, right? He's just changing his shape. I'm convinced of it. But I don't want to be confirmed or deconfirmed yet, right? Well, I know we'll find out. Does Hua Chong often get into fights? He says not often. It depends on his mood of the day. It's like, What was he like before becoming a ghost? He wasn't nice for sure. So he establishes that he was not nice. And that could be a self-reflection of himself being like, when I was alive, I wasn't kind. And maybe he's reflecting on the fact that if as when he knew Xie Lian before he ascended, if he knew him, if he's like, I wasn't nice to him, maybe he's reflecting on that. What does he look like? And then he like does the eyebrow thing where he's like, And he like scoots himself closer. He's like, what do you think he should look like? So this is like flag number 1. He says, what do you think he should look like? Okay. Because if he can change his shape, I feel like whatever form Hua Chong, if Hua Chong and San Long, I'm thinking they're the same person, but if he turned into this young youth, I imagine he wanted to be someone that he thought that Xie Lian would want to talk to and would find attractive. And he's like, what do you think he should look like? Like, what would appease you, sir? And Xie Lian's like, as a ghost king, he has probably multiple forms and appearances. I like that he's just like, So Xie Lian, bless his bones, Xie Lian has no clue. Has no clue for sure. Well, I take that back. He does suspect. He suspects, let me get this phrase right. He suspects San Long might be our boy. Might be Hua Chong. But he tries to figure out throughout the course of the episode. But he is not privy to his advances. Yeah, because that whole thing of what do you think he should look like, that should have been red flag. And he was like, I don't know. But interesting. And so then, yeah, he's like, I think he'll show his true form once in a while. I feel that his real look might be a young man like you. Funny that. I can't imagine why he would show up looking like that. So he says that he shows his true form. Shows true form once in a while. So the question is his true form what he showed Xie Lian in the corpse forest, or was that not his true form? Is that just like another form that he can take? We don't know. We don't know, right? But Xie Lian's like, man, he kind of would probably look like you. He's like, why? And he says, it's just a random guess. And they're like, you might be right. So yeah. So Xie Lian thinks, he guesses the form would be like San Long. And then San Long says that his right eye is blind. Okay. He says, however, one of his eyes is blind. He says, it's this eye. And Xie Lian's like, oh, what happened? And he just seems kind of distressed by that. He's like, oh goodness, what happened to this ghost? Like, he just seems like distressed that this ghost is blind. And he says, that's a great question. Many are wondering how Huachong lost his right eye. This might be his weakness. However, it was gouged out by himself when he went mad. And Xie Lian's like, oh no. So he gouged it out himself. I'm getting strong. Again, I'm getting strong Wanji vibes. Like, you know, if I won't spoil Mo Dao Zushi, but I'm getting strong Wanji vibes for many reasons. He's like, does he have any weak points? And then the way he says his bone ashes, it's like, oh, whoever gets his ashes will get his support. And whoever destroys the ashes will destroy the ghost. Okay, so how these ghosts work, and I'm assuming it's probably not just Huachong, but all the ghosts, is that they're bone ashes. Okay? Their bone ashes can create an alliance, because he said he'll support them and also destroy them. Okay. Interesting. And whoever destroys the ashes will destroy the ghost. And I like he does just a little gesture there. And Xie Lian's like, well, no one could get to his ashes. And he's like, that's not necessarily untrue. There's a situation he might offer his bone ashes willingly. And so Xie Lian's like thinking of the last episode where we find out where he challenged the 33 gods. The thing was, if he lost, he would give up his bone ashes. That's what that meant. I'm glad none of y'all spoiled me, because I was like, bone ashes. And so, yeah, so basically if he had lost the duel, he would have given his bone ashes to one of the gods, and they could have either scattered and destroyed him or taken control of him. It's like, okay, cool. But here, Xie Lian's like, oh, okay, so that's what you're talking about. And he's like, it's not like that. In the ghost realm has a custom where if a ghost trusts in someone, he will trust his bone ashes to that person. The custom is daring and sincere. Yeah, but not many dare to do so. Okay. Because, yeah, if his trust is abused, then it would be heartbreaking. I like that Xie Lian is like such a romantic. He is. He's such a romantic. Because he's like, oh, he's like, if the bone ashes are scattered, like, that'll be heartbreaking. They'll be gone for good. And it's like, and then, yeah, San just laughs at that. There's nothing to fear. If it was me, if it is, what did he say there? Because, yeah, he just laughs it off. And he says, if it were me, I would, isn't that what he said? If it were me, I would just, yeah. He says, if it is me who offers the bone ashes, I won't mind if they're destroyed or scattered. So that's the next red flag. So he's saying that if he's offering the bone ashes to someone, he would not mind the fate chosen. Okay. So that's a big red flag. She's like, oh, well, if I were offering my bone ashes to you, you could kill me for one. That has shades of Wuxin in it too. That's the whole, like, if I'm going to be destroyed, it needs to be by the hand of the person I trust the most. Red flag, I think that he's Huachong. But the question is, are his bone ashes hidden, or did Xie Lian somehow get a hold of them? Does someone else have the bone ashes and they're kind of holding him hostage with them? What's the situation? What's the story, Morning Glory? And Xie Lian's like, I don't understand you. He seems so confused. So yeah, this lovely cart ride slowly takes a dark turn as we go. It felt like Beauty and the Beast. It felt like when Maurice and Philippe, the horse like turn the wrong way, and then it just gets darker and spookier as they further go into the woods. And he's like, well, we've talked for a while, but I still don't know your name. This is what, the name thing is what made me think that he's Hua Chong, okay? Because he says because he's like, my name is Xie, my first name is Lian. And he's like, my name, I'm the third child in my family, right? He says, I am the third child, okay? And you can call me San Long. And he's like, oh, you're heading to Puki Village. He's like, Pushi, I'm just wandering around. My family kicked me out after a fight. So yeah, so third child kicked out after fight. Okay. I thought the moment he said this in the reaction, I thought that he was Hua Chong for two reasons. One, they said the third child. Now, the third child, in my opinion, my theory is it could refer to one of two things. Either he is the third. In the last episode, Hua Chong, I believe, was the third calamity mentioned. They mentioned Qi Rong, then they mentioned the Black Water Ghost, then they mentioned Hua Chong, then they mentioned Bai Wusheng. So they mentioned him third. But also, I think he might be the third calamity to come into existence. Like if the first one was, let's say the first two were Bai. I think that Qi Rong is probably either the youngest or oldest of the calamities. He seems like the youngest because he seems like they said he's the weakest. So I assume maybe he's the youngest. And then maybe Bai Wuxing and the Black Water Ghost are like the eldest of the two calamities. And then he's the third child. So I don't know. That was just that's where my headspace was. And then also he said he got kicked out by his family after a fight. I'm thinking that the ghost kicked him out. That he was kicked out of the ghost realm. Either he was kicked out of the ghost realm or he ran away. Or he escaped. One of those three scenarios. But I feel like this is a way of him saying, oh, the ghost kicked me out of the ghost realm. So now I'm kind of wandering around here looking for you. I was famished and I sat down to take a rest. And I love that Xie Lian's like, oh, here, do you want a meat bun? Like just the most precious cinnamon roll. I want to tuck him into my pocket. He's just so cute. And he's like, oh, I'm not that hungry. And he's like, well, I'm fine too. And he's like, fine, then we'll split it. It's so cute. And yeah, in perfect equal halves. And they just laugh and eat about it. Oh, it's so friggin' cute. And he just blows on it like, could you get any more suave? And then I like that Xie Lian says, I have just built a shrine. So I built a shrine for the god Shanlei. And I'll come treat you to some water chestnuts. And so then he says, the Crown Prince of Shanlei, you probably don't know of him though. And then he was about to answer that question and they get interrupted by the ghost. And so here's the thing. He grabbed his hand. He reached in because he was about to fall off the wagon. And he reached in and grabbed his hand. And his reaction to it, when he grabbed his hand, his reaction was very, like, you don't immediately see his face. And he looks like he's about to cry. So, what's the deal? He looks like he's about to cry when he grabbed his hand to save him. Like, I don't want answers yet, but oh no. And then he pulls the hand away and Xie Lian's like, what did I do? What happened? But the oxen won't go any further. So something has happened that he is upset that Xie Lian saved him. Okay. For some reason he's upset about it. We don't know why yet though. And so the oxen refuses to move forward and we find out why. That there's these lights, these guys, and here's the thing about this series that I think I may like more than Modao Sushi is that we're getting into like some Spirited Away style. I love world building where there's like creepy ghosts and spirits and they all have different intricate designs and different voices and everything. Like I'm all about that. And so this series seems like we're getting into like these guys are ghosts in charge of imprisonment. And so it's like, okay, they're like the Dementors coming to find somebody and take them away, right? So we're getting to all these cool designs with the ghosts, and we see a bunch of them walking around in this. But these guys with the label on their furs that say imprisonment, we don't see their faces. Right? And so then I love that Xie Lian, he does the guarding bandage. I know it has a name, but is the guarding bandage that he uses, because he says that he's a god that protects people. He's like, I don't give people wealth. I don't do marriage or fertility. I'm here to protect people. That's my goal. And so he uses that bandage to form the little protective circle. And he says, it just so happens to be the Ghost Festival. Okay. Of all times. Funny that. But yeah, it just happens to be the Ghost Festival. And I love that it makes them invisible. And then I like that he tells the human, he's like, just don't make a sound. He's like, I'm too scared. I can't do that. What should I do? And he's like, oh, I can help with that. Sorry. And just knocks him out. I love it. I love that he just knocks him out instantly. It's so great. But yeah, then these imprisonment ghosts, they kind of have like a funky voice, but they're like, what is it? And they're like, it's on. I can't get through. They're kind of not funny, but it's just, they're so strange. You're like, I really can't get through. And then they decide to like just float around it. And then I like that the one ghost says, what the hell? And he's like, well, that's a funny thing to say considering we came from hell itself. And it's like, womp, 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 womp. So yeah, so these are from the ghost realm, which is literally like hell apparently. And they're like, we can't go this way. So they decide to go around and float on by. And man, this shot here, the shot here where the ghosts go past him and he just looks, oh, that look. I'm like, you're so Hua-Chong. Like just the look he gives the ghost, the imprisonment ghost, he's just like got that like, gotcha boys, I managed to get around you. But that look to the imprisonment ghosts. Yeah. Yeah, why would a mortal make that kind of look? That kind of look like, oh, hey boys, nice to see you all again. Having fun trying to look for me. So are they looking for him? So was he imprisoned and he escaped and now Hua-Chong is like running loose and they're trying to imprison? Because yeah, that's the thing. Can gods in the heavenly realm, they were talking about imprisoning Shan-Ji into a mountain in the mortal realm, right? They were talking about imprisoning her into a mountain in the mortal realm. So if they can imprison a ghost in the mortal realm, then there's no reason to think that they probably couldn't have sent Hua-Chong to the ghost realm to get imprisoned. I don't know. But I'm like, so did they get Hua-Chong imprisoned and then he escaped and that's why these guys are looking for him? Yeah. But then they managed to start making the wagon move again. And I like that he like sits up front and he's like, oh, you're a man of talent. And Xie Lian's like, I just know a bit about it. And he's just like, oh, I'm scared. Like, I just want, no, you're not. He's like, not exactly, I'm scared. And Xie Lian's like, it'll be okay, stay behind me. The most cinnamon bun. Like, just, I freaking love Xie Lian. He's the most precious. Nothing could hurt you. Oh my gosh, are you joking? So there's all these bats, like these bats and these intricate like ghost designs, like these creepy like lizard ghosts. And then I just like that, I like that Xie Lian is like thinking about something, trying to be like, okay, how do I prove that he's a ghost? How do I figure it all out? And meanwhile, old long hair is just giving him a look like, what you thinking about, boyfriend? What you thinking about? But he looks at the bandages around his neck. So, the bandages... Okay, the bandages at Xie Lian's neck and legs, I'm assuming, are tied to a past life, perhaps? I said back in episode 1, I wondered if he had done like an actual Xing Shin thing and like slit his throat, and that's why, and he like ended his life that way. But now I don't know. The more that he talked about the Emperor, I was like, I wonder if he if he was punished by the gods, if they physically hurt him, if that's even possible. I don't know. I don't get good vibes, but it's clear that he fixates on those bandages on that wound. And Xie Lian's like, oh, this, and he's about to say what it is, and then we don't get answers because the little will-o-wisps like hit the barrier and dissolve like the tiny ghost. And of course the tiny ghost dissolving signals to the other ghosts. They're like, we're being attacked. Oh no, the will-o-wisps are being extinguished. It's like, no, they just fell into the barrier. Could they be monks or Taoist priests? And he's like, hold on, we gotta get out of here. Oh my gosh, it's great. And then, yeah, and then there's this frog deity, this frog ghost, not deity. And then like all these creatures, they're like, they're like, it's a Taoist priest, catch them. I love the world building. I love how creepy it is. It's very Spirited Away. And so then he's like, oh, Mr. Taoist priest, what are you doing? And I love that Xie Lian's like, okay, I got all these sticks and we got to figure out which way to go. I'm just going to toss them down, let fate decide. And everything he tosses down is bad luck, which someone had noted that he said he was a martial god, which we've established in episode 1 was like a battle god. Okay. He was a martial god, so he was able to go into battle. And they said he was a plague god, and then he was a scrap collecting god, which is what he is now. So somebody, I can't remember if it was in the comments on YouTube or Patreon, was saying that a plague god is bad luck. Which would make sense if he was only in that position for 30 minutes, because that's when he got demoted like after half an hour. So if it was something to do with the whole human face disease, could be tied to that, but said it was bad luck. So, of course, you know, because that's part of Xie Lian's history and his former self, every stick he throws down is bad luck. And I like this Long is like watching his ceremony with the sticks and the heaven official's blessing, and he's just watching like, what are you doing? And then every stick is bad disaster. And I just love that there's more lightning that surround him. It's so cute. He's like, I'm the worst. And then he's like, fine, you try. Because he's like, oh, can I give it a try? He's like, don't push yourself. And then he sticks down and gets a good luck. And he's like, luck favors you. It always does. So he says that luck always, what does he say? Luck always favors him. Yeah. Okay. Interesting that we have our unlucky deity and our quite lucky, not in any way, shape, or form, a ghost man here. So they decide to just take a chance and go with that direction there. And this man's been passed out the entire time. And so then the imprisonment ghosts stop them. We still made a bad choice. And then I like that. So the whole time, Long is like sitting a little bit behind Xie Lian. He's like sitting a little bit behind, and he's not looking at the ghosts, right? He's not looking towards them. And then Xie Lian stands up. And I love that he's like, I didn't mean to offend you, but please let us go. And they're like, let you go? You extinguished the will-o-wisps. And he's like, I did not. He's like, I'm just a scrap collector. Your will-o-wisps, they hit our barrier themselves, not my fault. And he's going to grab the talismans, right? He's going to try to subdue them so that they can get away, right? And at that point, I think that old Long here is like, don't throw the talismans because it's just going to get us more trouble. And Xie Lian's like, not all ghosts are killed by Taoist priests. And they're like, well, who else could kill us? Us ghosts? And he's like, it's not impossible. Meaning that ghosts can kill ghosts, right? And as he says that, we pan over to Long. Okay, sure. And then that's when he goes and they're like, keep spinning your story. And they go after him. And as he's about to pull out the talisman, yeah, Long looks and his eyes glow. And they all decide to run away. Yeah. So that's a question, though. He said his right eye was blinded, but the eye that we saw, I mean, both eyes gleamed, but the eye that was focused on was his left eye instead of the right. It was on the left eye instead of the right. So that could still hold true. Maybe in this form that he's taking, he's hiding the fact that he can't see out of the right eye and just making it look like he has both eyes available, right? Because he can take any form that he wants to. Again, if we're presuming that this is Hua Chong. It may not be Hua Chong. It may be somebody else. It may be somebody totally different than Hua Chong. I could be totally wrong. It could be the Bai Wusheng guy for all we know. I know they said he was dead, but I was like, you bring up a source of this character's trauma and make such a big deal about it and then tell me he's totally dead? Okay, sure thing. And maybe he is and we're just going to get flashbacks of him later on. I don't want to know. But it's interesting. And he's like, oh, hey. He's like, what happened? And he's like, oh, you're so intimidating that the ghosts are scared off. And Xie Lian's like, I didn't think I was that good. I didn't think I could be that good with it. And he's like, He was just like, there's no way I could have scared them off. He's so doubting of himself. But then it turns out that the road they picked was, in fact, the better choice because it was like all lit up by the moonlight. Good luck. Yep, what a narrow escape. This path is indeed promising. As he turns to stare at San Long. And just the little stares at each other, I'm like, they get quite a lot past the censorship in this episode because the moment he's like, let's sleep together, I'm like, but I know that nothing was implied by it, but still, in Modao Zushi, would we have seen Wushin and Wanji in the same bed with each other? Unless it was played up as a joke? I don't think so. At least not in season 1. I need to go back and rewatch season 1. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, he says, my friend, have you ever had your fortune told? So at this point, even though Xie Lian thinks that they're on the right path, and even though he doesn't seem to harbor any ill will towards Hua Chong, at this point, he wants to try to start proving if he is him or not. And so he goes through a few different methods, and the one is reading his palms. He's like, how would you do it? And he's like, what about a palm reading? And he's like, oh, sure. And the way that he smiles, he's like, like, it's very much like a, if you insist, like, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to, lure me out. And then he like looks, he says, ordinary ghosts could conjure up human form, but their palm prints would reveal the flaws. And so then he starts like talking just gibberish, saying like, oh yeah, everything's great. And then as he's giving him like all of these reasonings, he's like, okay, so his palm looks legit. So in order for it to be a ghost, it had to be at least a wrath level. Yeah, his palm print is clear. He's like, he'd have to at least be at a wrath level in order to pull this off. But we established that Hua Chong is like maybe at devastation level. Yeah, he's like, if he's a ghost, he'd have to be at least a wrath rank to be so flawless. Like, so he could be strong enough that he's flawless, right? So it's still possible. Even though it's unlikely, it's still a possibility. Why would a ghost king come here? Why indeed, right? Why would a deity set up shop here, And he's like, what else do you want to know? And he says relationship. And I'm like, so that's the other thing too, right? He wants to know relationship status. Okay. It's like, how's my relationship outcome going to be? And then Xie Lian's like, he's like, you shouldn't worry about that. There must be plenty of girls who like you. And I love these, like, you'd be surprised. But he's like, why do you think so? And then Xie Lian says, because you are handsome and because you're unique, open-minded, and a knowledgeable young man. It's like, keep praising. He's like, you're coaxing me into praising you. Yep. Oh my God. So they end up going back to his little shack. And I love that he sends the man off and everything. But then he's like, where are you going to stay at? And he's like, I don't know, on the streets. He's like, well, you could stay here. I love it. I'm like, oh my God, he actually invited him to stay over. Yeah. He's like, you could stay at my shrine. And oh my God, when he was like, oh, he's like, that won't do. If you don't mind, you can come to my shrine. And he's like, oh, really? And then he's like, my place is pretty shabby, though. I hope you don't mind. But that look on his face when he looks at Xie Lian, where he's like, it'll be fine. He's like, it's okay. He's like, I don't care what your shack looks like, right? It's that look of him being like, I'm not gonna judge you, right? And him twiddling his thumbs. Oh, He's like, I don't care what the shack looks like. Mm-mm. And for a second, it looked like he was going to kiss him. I thought he was going to kiss him. And then he ducks around him and grabs the basket. And Xie Lian's like, what? Oh my God. I can't, y'all. But they end up going, after he sends that guy away, they end up going inside the shack. And he has cleaned it up. He's cleaned it up, had a little benefactor box and the little candle and everything. It's so cute. He's like made it look as nice as he could. And he's like, where's the picture? And he's like, do you have a bed? He's like, we'll share a bed tonight. And he's like, that's fine with me. And he says, that's fine with me. Like, it's not disappointed, but it's kind of like, he wants to get with Xie Lian, but not under these circumstances, right? Because he can't reveal to Xie Lian that he's Hua Chong, that he's this kid that Xie Lian saved as a god, as a kid that we don't know the rest of the story about. But it was just that look, he was like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So he clearly he wants to be with Xie Lian, but he can't for reasons that we don't know yet. But obviously this was not the circumstance he wanted to be in the same bed with Xie Lian, not under these circumstances specifically. Because as far as Xie Lian knows, he's just a stranger he met today. He's just being kind and offering him a bed. And his bed is just this little blanket on the ground. He's trying the best he can. But the way that he looks at it, it almost seems like nostalgic. Like he's reminiscing about something. Like maybe this was a situation that happened in the past. We don't know. There's just so many little contextual things in the way that he glances and looks at Xie Lian that I feel like once we know more context, going back and rewatching this episode, I'm going to be like, oh, but we're not there yet, right? But yeah, him brushing off the mat. And he said, Xie Lian, something is missing in your shrine. And then I love that Xie Lian's like, yeah, apart from believers, it should be adequate. That was so dry, but it's so funny. He's like, we just need some people here to believe in me. Oh. And he said, how about a picture? And he's like, oh, I'll paint one tomorrow. And he's like, I can paint too. I'll help you. When I was in the ghost realm, when I was locked away in the ghost realm, I painted all the time. Nothing else to do. I painted with the blood of my enemies. And then, of course, Xie Lian's like, well, you may know a lot about the gods, but you don't know what the crown prince looked like. And he's like, oh, no, I know. He's like, remember we were talking about him in the cart, so I know something about him. And so he would believe him because right before he met him, he was talking about how some of the scrolls did mention him. And he was like, okay, well, then that would make sense that this kid knows who I am because I read some scrolls that have my name in it, so there's probably info about me out there. Okay. And then I like that Xie Lian's like, oh, so you do know about me. Okay, like that little soft smile. Aw. And then him just like plopping down beside him. But he has like the little silver belt thing. I'm telling you, he's Hua Chong. We just don't know how or why. Just sitting there with his legs spread apart, you know. He's like, yes. So what do you think of this crown prince of Shanla? I love the candles red too. It's perfect. But he asks him, he's like, well, what do you think about this god then, since you know him? And he says, I think that Heavenly Emperor Junwu must hate him. So we get that we have the Heavenly Emperor has a name. All right. Junwu. And apparently, according to not Hua Chong, he would hate Xie Lian. Now, for why? What reasons? We don't know exactly yet, right? He says, why do you say so? Well, why else would he banish him twice? And so then Xie Lian says, well, that's a child's way of thinking. Like, you don't know the full story. Like, that's kids' logic. Like, oh, well, he'd hate him because he got kicked out twice. He's like, oh, you don't know the full story. But I think he does, or knows a big part of it. He's just not telling Xie Lian. And he says, there are many things in the world that cannot be explained by likes or dislikes. Mm-hmm. And just laying out, like taking his robes off and his boots off. I love that he just takes it off so casually around San Long. He's just like, there's lots of things we don't know about it. Just like removing. That was made such a big deal in Mode Azuchi when you revealed the outer robes. Like, it was such a big deal. Like, the moment one outer robe was shucked, people were like, it was like a Victorian woman showing an ankle. And here, he just like chucks it and takes his boots off right in front of this man he met this afternoon. It's almost like they've known each other before. Or maybe Xie Lian is just so like not modest that he doesn't care, right? He says, besides, transgressors ought to be punished. And at that point, when he takes the boots off, His Majesty was just doing his job. The look on Long's face is anything but satisfied by that answer. That is the look of a man who's like, no, you were mistreated and abused, and I'm not happy about it. That's what that look says. He's like, no, your past is dark and sketchy, and I don't like it. So that is what that look says, because he immediately looks, and there's something black underneath the bandages. Now in the OP, it's like lit up and beautiful, but there it's black. So I'm like, we don't know what that means, but his neck is like that, and his legs are like that. Oh, and you see there's something like underneath the bandages. Okay. And then Xie Lian notices him looking, and he's like, oh, this is, and he hides his legs. But he doesn't tell what it is. And then that's when he turns over and says, get some rest. Like, he wants to talk about it. He wants to talk about it with him, but he can't for whatever reason, right? That we aren't knowing yet. But okay, so I'm gonna amend my theory from episode 1. In episode 1, I said that I thought Xie Lian had the bandages because he had like hurt himself, like taken his own life. But now I don't think so. I think that he was punished. And I think he was punished by the Heavenly Emperor and either had his neck slit by the Heavenly Emperor and demoted back to a mortal body, or had his legs or arms like shackled or chained, or he was tortured, or something bad happened to him as punishment, I think, by the Heavenly Realm. And that's why he wears those bandages. I think that's my theory at this point. Again, it's probably going to change. But obviously, San Long believes that it was not justified, or that it was too harsh, or that he didn't deserve it, or something. And Xie Lian's like, no, those transgressors ought to be punished. So, y'all say the past is really horrible for this character, and I'm like, I don't want spoilers, but I can already see that it's going to be really tragic, and I'm not looking forward to it. I love the animation where he just goes and blows out the candle. That's so good. He took off his little moon boots and put them there, and then just sat on the cot beside. And I love that, obviously, San Long is not asleep. And he's just sitting there thinking about everything. And they both, like, sit back to back, sleeping back to back. My theory, too, is that if he is, in fact, Hua Chong, that by, like, the end of this novel, they're going to, like, he's going to flip over. One of them's going to flip over and spoon the other one. I'm going to guess that Xie Lian is the little spoon because we put sugar with the little spoon. So, I'm just going to say that. And then the next morning, he wakes up and he's not there, but the painting is there. How he went out in the middle of the night and found paints a canvas. A man of many talents. He can do everything. But it's the same version of him that rescued the little boy with the bandages, right? The crown prince that rescued the one with the bandages, right? And you could argue with the sword there. And like the butterfly. Is it a butterfly mask? Does the mask have a big butterfly on it? Oh! The mask looks like it's a big butterfly. Oh, so is that why Hua Chong chose to use butterflies? Maybe. Okay. And then the flowers that are in the painting are the ones that are in the OP. But, so that's interesting that I'm sure that maybe there are pictures of Sean Lee that are around, but it's funny that the image here is the same version that rescued the little boy with the bandages. Probably the version that he remembers best before he first ascended. Okay. Yep. Interesting. And yeah, he's so... And I love that he looks at it and he's just like, oh, who did this? You? And so then he goes out. And I'm surprised. I thought that Long would have left. I thought he would have ran off. He would have painted the picture and left. And we wouldn't see him again for like another 6 episodes. But nope, he stuck around, sitting there sweeping. He's like, did you rest well last night? And he's like, oh, yeah. Did you paint the picture of the shrine? Yeah. He's like, it's very well done. And he's like, oh. He's like, I'm glad I can help. As the wind blows through his perfect hair. And then that's when he reaches up and grabs his hair, and I'm like, oh. And he's like, your hair is messy. Let me help you comb it. And again, so this is the funny thing, right? This is the funny thing, because on the one hand, it's just hitting me now. Xie Lian is wanting to try to out and rule out the possibility of San Long being Hua Cheng the ghost. So he's doing all these things to try to out him. He's like trying to question him for information. He does the palm reading. He's doing now like brushing his hand through his hair and offering to comb it. All these things are just in service of Xie Lian trying to figure out if he's a ghost or not. But either Long knows this and knows that's why he's doing it, which part of me thinks that's the case. He's like, oh, you're trying to figure out if I'm the ghost or not. And so part of me thinks it's that. But then the other part of me just now is thinking, what if that's not what he thinks? What if he's taking everything that Xie Lian is doing and thinks it's flirting? What if he's getting the mixed vibes, like the wrong Wuxian vibes? What if he's getting mixed signals? And so the palm reading is being viewed as flirting. The whole learning about you is seen as flirting. This running your hands through his hair is seen as flirting. What if he thinks that all this is just an elaborate means of flirting by Xie Lian and he's getting the wrong idea? Oh my gosh. I don't know at this point. But yeah, he combs through his hair and everything, and he's trying to figure out, he's like, no matter how good a ghost is at disguise, his hair would give him away. And he's like, that's strange. There's nothing unusual. And then that's when he notices that he's looking at him. He's like, oh. And he's like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, oh, you're just combing through my hair? And he's like, oh, no, let me put this up here. And it's like, it's just this little side ponytail that's so messed up. And he's like, And he's like, okay, it's done. Yeah, it's like the worst. It's the worst hairdo, and he keeps it. He keeps it, though. He's like, my hair feels more knotted up. That's what makes me think that he's not onto him, trying to figure out that he's a ghost. That he might think it's just flirting. Oh, my God. Oh, no, Xie Lian. Oh, no, Xie Lian. Oh, no. Not good. Not good, Cotton. So, yeah, he's trying. He's sitting there like, and he's like, what are you doing? But he kept his hair the same way. He's like, oh, I'm putting up a talisman after changing the door curtain. And so he's like, oh, a talisman? And he's like, oh, they're just talismans that ward off evil or ghosts. Since there's no door, we can use this talisman to defend. And he's like, oh, let me go find you a door. So at first, Xie Lian believes that he left because of the talismans, being like, well, if he is a ghost, then was he blocked out by the talismans? And I love his raised eyebrow, like, could it have been that simple? But then he went to go find the door. Interesting. Interesting indeed. And so what does he end up saying there? He offers, he's thinking about everything, and then he sees him come back with the wood that he just hacks up into. And he's got like the one coat off, and he's down to his like other coat. And he's like, I'm making you something. And he makes him the nice door. And he's like, oh, well. And I like that Xie Lian's like, wow, it really works. And he's like, I'll help you fix this place up. And it's like, aw. He's trying to be nice and help him make his shrine look better. And remodeling. He's like, I have nothing else to do. You know, he just wants to spend the time with Xie Lian. He just wants to spend the time with him. And they work on the roof. They work together on the projects. They mop the floor. It's like domestic bliss. These two boyfriends and their domestic bliss fixing up the house. You know, it's freaking cute. And then him like looking over, and Xie Lian constantly looking at him. Constantly. It's like, oh, honey, you got it bad. You are whipped. But they end up fixing the place up with all the firewood and everything. I didn't expect you to be capable of everything. He's like, I learned to do them when I was a kid. And then Xie Lian says, your family must have been harsh on you. And he's like, oh, I got these tattoos when I was a kid too. I wish we knew what the tattoo said, but I guess we're going to find out what that means eventually. And he's like, I drew to my own amusement. And then he says, how could you even draw the pleasant crown prince of Shanli? You said I was capable of everything. So of course I can do that. It's like such a way to avoid the question. Like, just be as mysterious as you possibly can be, right? He's avoiding the question. But yeah, and so here we are. That makes sense. Oh yeah, okay. So then we get these guys coming up to the temple. The man did not keep his promise. He told a bunch of people about it. They brought offerings. And so they know that, so it seems like they know that they call him a priest, right? But then they also call him the god of wealth and god of love. Bless me with a wife and god of fertility. So I'm assuming that they just think that Xie Lian is the priest. He's not the actual god, right? He's like, this shrine isn't for marriage. And I love that as he's like, this shrine isn't for marriage or fertility, none of this stuff. No, it's not like that. I love that as he's saying this, Long is like, really? Like, you're being so modest. And they have all the incense sticks. And then so they pray. So they just are assuming that Xie Lian is the priest watching over the shrine that is for Shanli. Okay. I really like that look that Long gives him though, because really Xie Lian is super humble and very sweet. He like made his own shrine. He's super humble. He's not asking for much. He's trying his best. And even Ling Wen was like, you're really humble about all this. So I think that it's funny because it's really funny how that works, because I want to keep calling Hua Chang, and I know that right now he's San Long. But Long basically was talking about how the people ended up making the water god into a god of wealth by all the ways that they were praying to him. And so I'm like, Xie Lian does not want to become something that he's not. So he's like, no. He's like, please don't. He's like, I told him not to tell anyone. And so, and of course, they're praying to him. And he's like, if my dream comes true, he's like, bless me with wealth, I beg of you. He's like, you have many believers now. He's like, I thought I wouldn't have any believers for a month. And so Long asks Xie Lian if it's nice to be gaining believers. And he's like, it is nice, but it used to be so quiet, so I'm not used to the crowd. Maybe your good luck has rubbed off on me. Oh, and he thanks him. And I love, he's like, if I can, and here's the thing. I'm like, at this point, all the red flags are there. It's just, you need that one final thing to be like, oh, he's Hua Chang. And then what does he do? He says, if my luck can be of any help, you can just take it all. It's like, And then of course they do the comedy thing where Xie Lian's like, what'd you say? And he's like, it's nothing. No, he is. The big question is how. So he tried to weed him out through the hair and through the palm readings, and he's clearly more powerful than that. But we have established through Feng and Yao that he is like one of the strongest ghosts there is. So it would make sense if he's one of the strongest, he could be the most convincing in this form. But I'm like, why is he there in that form? What's his purpose? Is he just trying to get to Xie Lian? What's their history? We don't know yet. And then he's just like, he clearly wants to get with Xie Lian, and we just don't know why or what their history is at this point. And that's the mystery, right? But then these people show up and they have the man that needs to be healed. And they're like, this man came out of nowhere. It seems that he's dying. And they ask him to be saved. And he's got like, did he just like pee on himself? I thought it was sand coming out from under him, but I guess did he just pee on himself? Oh my God. Oh. And then he just collapses. Okay. So yeah, so in summary, I do think that Long is Hua Chang. I think that he's him. How he is him, I don't know. Why he's posing as him, I don't know. What his and Xie Lian's actual full history is, we don't know yet. But I think that it is him, and he's just trying to get around Xie Lian and help him. Okay? And he clearly does not like the gods, and he has a grudge against the Emperor, Junwu, so there's that. Xie Lian, I keep wanting to call him Sean Lee, so I need to just stick with Xie Lian so I don't keep mixing his name up. But he is suspecting that Long is Hua Chong, but has no proof. Can't prove it. And the bandages might have been a form of punishment from the Heavenly Realm. We don't know for sure. They're not good. There's probably a tragic backstory to them. Not ready for that. So there's that. And then he's trying to be as modest as he can be. He just wants to protect people. He doesn't want to be a god of wealth or fertility or marriage or anything. He just wants to be a god of protection. And the followers just aren't listening. So that's going to be the thing. Like what he does with the man that's dying in the next episode, that's going to be interesting. But this was a really good episode. The mystery deepens. I feel like it's one of those things where they want us to think that it's Hua Chong, but for us to also question how. And that's what's going to be fun to figure out. So please, no spoilers. I don't want my theories confirmed or deconfirmed, but I'm along for the ride with y'all, and I'm getting sucked into this show, and I'm really curious what's going to happen next, and I can't wait to read the novel. So, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So we're halfway through, y'all. Next episode, we're going to be past the halfway mark. I can't believe it, but I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you guys thought of this reaction and discussion. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Heaven Officials Blessing. Bye.